All right, well, there's a lot of topics that we discuss, of discussion here that you'll see in Quality Digest. And a lot of those things focus on, I guess, what you could call big Q quality. What I'm calling big Q quality. Those are things like tested measurements, statistical analysis, and registration services for the various standards. Those things spring to mind when I think of big Q quality, right? Hard cost quality. Then there's what could be referred to maybe as more of the little Q quality. And these articles have to do with things like the core competencies around management, culture, and fulfilling the organization's mission and vision. Developing these softer skills often means the difference between an organization that merely survives versus one that really thrives. What to Do When Reality Smacks You in the Face by author and trainer Susan Fowler falls squarely into this latter category. The article appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest. You can see it right there. In the piece, Fowler relates a conundrum that she encountered earlier in her career. And the specifics really aren't that important, really, in terms of what happened. Suffice it to say that she and her boss weren't really seeing eye to eye, and the issue was that Fowler had a more ambitious view of a project than the company's CEO, and that caused her to take a hard look at where she was and where she wanted to go within the context of this company. Susan, the boss, had said, "Your problem is you keep creating 9-ton elephants for 2-ton cages." In other words, she always was kind of going past the scope of what the boss wanted her to do. She was coming up with these very ambitious programs and projects and probably ways to spend money, and the boss was like, "Well, hold on a second, we don't necessarily want to go that far. We don't want a 9-ton elephant. We just want one to fit in this little 2-ton cage that we have set up for the project." Now, this isn't an uncommon issue, and it tends to pop up in organizations with overlapping and sometimes competing goals. Like I say, it's not uncommon. Lots of us have a culture like this in which, let's say the desire to come up with breakthrough innovations might compete with the need to control risk, especially as it might pertain to potential scope and or budget creep. Just like I'm saying, the CEO, obviously, as a CEO, is concerned about, well, can we fit this project you want to do, which is really ambitious, into our budget? Do we know we have customers for it? Yada, yada, yada. And she's just saying, no, this is cool, we should do it, right? That's a misalignment. Fowler is a proponent of a technique she refers to as self-leadership. And that's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a personal sense of accountability to oneself to take responsibility for your own career success. And in that vein, Fowler presents 3 business realities that force people into false and wasteful choices. She also identifies the self-leadership tactics that she chose to employ in overcoming them. And again, this kind of stemmed from that story she told of this misalignment she had with her boss, with the CEO, about the project she wanted to do versus what they could do. So in thinking about that, she came up with these misalignments, these wasteful things that are really false choices as well, and what she recommends for self-leadership techniques to help overcome them. Well, the first of these is what she refers to as wasted creative energy, which happens when you're caught between your own desire for autonomy and the company's need for you to be a good little follower, right? In this situation, Fowler found herself with 3 choices as she defined them. She could first continue with her own personal sense of mission, regardless of the broader company initiatives. She could work as best she could within the limits of the company, or she could kind of do both by following her own star while gently nudging the company toward a more expansive vision of what it could be. As Fowler writes, self-leaders also have the ultimate choice of walking away. So, what she's saying there is that, you need to understand what you can do, what the limits are, work the best you can within it. And if you really just can't, well, you need to take ownership of your career, and maybe you need to find a different company. It's good advice. The second waste that she talks about here is wasted emotional energy. And this occurs when you feel the need to embrace your own personal meaning through work, yet you also recognize that the organization has a collective goal and goals that often take precedence over any individual desires. Organizations, by their nature, can never meet everyone's needs, not for all their customers and certainly not for all their employees, right? They just can't do it. Therefore, Fowler recommends that self-leaders focus on seeking and deriving meaning from their own work while simultaneously rising above pure self-interest by contributing to the common good. Kind of a, I guess you call it kind of a duality of mind there.
Right.
You're focused on what you can do, what you want to do, what you need to do, and also look at the common good for the company, for the employees, for your customers, certainly. and try to do both those things, and you'll find more alignment in what you are.
This actually ties back to an article that we covered a while ago, which was discovering what makes you tick.
Right.
Right? If you understand what makes you tick, then you can see, okay, then how do I satisfy that need within the context of my job?
Yeah.
And I think we gave the example of, well, I like working on restoring old cars, right? Well, it isn't about restoring old cars. It's about the discovery process. It's about using tools. It's about everything that goes into restoring cars.
Right.
So now then, can I take those ideas that I know about myself and plug them back into my work to make my work more interesting?
And also have a connection with what the organization needs. That's exactly what she's saying there. And the third of these is really important too. That's wasted productive energy, which comes about through the disconnect between your values and those of the organization, just what Dirk was talking about. And of course, the organization are usually tied to, guess what, profits, right? Yep. And Fowler advises that it's easiest to stand up for your values when you're clear about what they are. Self-leaders take responsibility to align their values to projects that they can get behind and which also have a real payoff for the organization. Again, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, is that you want to be able to, yes, do what you want to do, be who you are, but also understand how that fits with what the organization needs too. It's really important. See, I mean, it's all about culture and values. Those are the two axes that she's talking about here. And they don't have to compete, but many times they do. And if they are not in alignment, you need to make sure you get them in alignment. And it's your responsibility. And again, these are, I mean, I guess you can consider these, again, little Q topics within quality, but they really have a very big effect on how well the organization can fulfill its mission. And on a personal level, I think self-leadership techniques are really invaluable for navigating your way through what the company needs while still being you in the workplace. And you've said, Dirk, many times, and I always agree with it when you said it, that you don't leave your values at the door when you come to work. And in thinking about that and thinking about the story a little bit, I realize that that's really exactly what she's saying here, is that the company has cultures, the company has values, the company has goals and motivations. So do you, and you have values that are intrinsic to who you are and what makes you you. You got to make those things align. If you can't, again, you have the ultimate option of walking away, and you may need to. I mean, sometimes you can't. You have 3 kids in school, and and your wife's not working, your husband's not working, or whatever. You need the health insurance in this case. But you need to find a way to make it work for yourself, because if you don't, you're not going to not just be unhappy, you're also not really going to be a good worker. You're not going to be the person that company needs you to be and doing what the company needs you to do for the company to be successful.
Which is why I think it's also important, the flip side of this, right, is managers got to realize that their employees have to be involved in their work. I mean, emotionally involved, kind of intrinsically involved in what they're doing. And so it's kind of also, in a sense, up to managers to understand what makes their employees tick and to try to work with them to feed those needs, because they're going to be more productive employees. So I mean, it's to the company's best interest not to just shovel jobs at people that maybe they aren't matched for.
Right.
There is a certain amount of matching, I think, that has to go on until finally that employee is plugged in or given the resources or whatever it is that they feel part of the work that they're doing, and they feel an emotional investment in the work they're doing as much as possible. And not always possible, but it's
not always possible. But you're gonna. I mean, if you want to make sure that you're doing little Q quality right, you, as a manager especially, you've got to do that. It's your responsibility to try to understand as best you can who your people are and what they are best at and what turns them on to a certain extent, so you can get the best out of them. And again, you can serve your customers and your organization better. Yep. Good article there by Susan Fowler. Check that one out. Again, all the articles we're covering on today's show are below. Yeah.